Ears splitting before match point. Londa. Chin. Turn back and Purdue wins.
Setting up Peterson again. Blocked! Boilermakers do it! They survived the upset with a 3-set run to win in 5 and advance to the Sweet 16 for the 3rd consecutive year.
The block by Purdue, and the Boilermakers are moving on!
The Dig City Podcast is presented by Franciscan Health Sports Medicine, inspiring health. Franciscan is the official medical services provider of Purdue Athletics. Welcome back to the Dig City Podcast. Cory Palm alongside head coach Dave Shondell. Coach, we are at the end of the non-conference schedule. 9-1, the Boilermakers finish up with sweeps last weekend over Northern Kentucky and Ball State. Sort of your overall impressions coming into the season. There were a lot of unknowns, at least from the outside in, and certainly from your vantage point. You'd seen the players, but you'd never seen them. A lot of them in competition for you before. Did you get what you wanted out of the non-conference slate?
And more, I would say, Cory. I think that going into the non-conference with the 10 teams that we had on the schedule, 9-1 was going to be a pretty tall order. But yet here we are sitting at 9-1, and that's a real compliment to our team that they pulled together and found a way to, I think, outwork some other people and get organized and believe in themselves and play at a high level. Now, right now, our RPI is not as good as I thought it might be, because a lot of these really good mid-major programs that we played, people who were expected to win their conference tournaments, have really scheduled tough. So, and this is just a comparison, it's not really fair, but it's like in high school, if you're a 1A or 2A team, you're going to play your whole non-conference against 4A. Well, that helps you. It gets you, it gets you ready. And a lot of these mid-major or even, smaller programs, they're only going to get one team in their conference. So here's an opportunity for them to give great experiences to their players to go into bigger programs and bigger gyms and be challenged and compete. And so when they go back into their conference play, they're much more ready. Mm-hmm. And so that's what a lot of these teams have done. I look at Northern Kentucky, a team that was picked to win the Horizon Conference and still might, because they looked pretty good when they were in our gym this past weekend. But I think they may have won 2 or 3 matches in non-conference. So that doesn't help us right now. But when they get into the Horizon, and then I think they start to beat people, then their record goes from whether it's 2-9 pretty quickly to hopefully 21-12 or something along those lines. Mm-hmm. And then those will help. And that's just one team that I think is in that same category as Milwaukee and Bradley, and a few other that we play. Loyola of Chicago, that just scheduled out of their minds. They and Milwaukee both scheduled out of their minds, and as did Northern Kentucky. So I think at the end of the day, we're going to be fine with RPI, especially now that we get into Big Ten play and we're playing all these teams that have lost very few matches.
Northern Kentucky was exactly who I was thinking of when you were talking about that, because you like you said, they came in 1-8 last weekend, and you guys made pretty quick work of them on Thursday. It was a little tight, for one of the 3 sets. But then come Friday, they were playing a good Ball State team. Yeah. That was a barn burner. Yeah. That was a great match. It went 5, and Northern Kentucky pulled it out. And you could see, wow, there's real quality here.
They're very athletic. They're very fast. They got some kids with really long arms. But all you got to do is look at their schedule. They played Missouri. They played, I think, maybe Louisville. They played Western Kentucky twice. They really went to bat against some people, and they've lost those. But I think that coach recognizes that we have to win our league to get a bid, so let's go out and play some people. And I think they also get paid pretty well when they do that also. So some programs can benefit financially from going to some bigger schools, especially if you're expected to win 20-plus matches. So, but overall, the RPI will be fine. I thought that we played above where most people would have expected this Purdue team to be, and again, that's a credit to our leadership and just our kids working hard and believing in the history of this program and doing their very best to make sure we're keeping our head above water as we head into Big Ten play.
Mentioned the win over Northern Kentucky, the sweep over Ball State on Saturday afternoon as well. A great crowd in a Holloway gym, and they were treated to a really good match, very competitive, within a couple points in set two. Went extra in set three before you guys were able to pull it out, and really took a comeback there in set three to do that. It was compelling.
Ball State was a team that won 30 matches last year, including beating Michigan in the NCAA tournament. And they really just filled one spot from a year ago, a left side hitting position. And I think that they're still trying to get that figured out. Nobody's really stepped up and gotten the job done at a high level, but they have everybody else back, and their ball control is good. And Kelly Miller, one of our former players, is doing a great job there. So no surprise that they made it tough on us. When we played Ball State in the spring down in Indianapolis, they beat us. Again, they're a good team with good talent, and they played really well against us. We beat them handily the first set, and then they woke up and began to compete. And I thought that was great because they could have easily won sets 2 and 3, but our kids were resilient, and they fought and they battled. And as you said, it made it a lot of fun for the fans that were there, and so happy with that crowd that we had, because that's kind of what we expect here at Purdue, is to have a full end of students, 300 and 400 students that are kind of leading the way for the rest of the fans. But it was a jam-packed crowd, and I'm sure this Friday we'll have a similar arrangement when Goldie the Gopher comes in.
We'll talk about Minnesota and Iowa, the Big Ten lid lifter as it was this weekend coming up. But you mentioned something there against Ball State. You saw the resilience in your team in those close sets of 2 and 3. That's been a recurring theme here early in the first month of the season. You've played a lot of 2 or 3 point sets, throughout the course of the last 4 weeks, and far more than not, you guys are coming out on top in those really dire, tied at 23 situations. Talk about that resilience a little bit.
Well, I think winning breeds winning, and even though not very many of these people were directly on the floor. I mean, clearly, Raven Colvin was on the floor a lot last year. Skimmerhorn for a couple of rotations was on the floor, and then you had the three-headed Hydra, Chin, Ellis, and Cook, that were sharing one spot. But they were there, and they understand what this program is about. So I think that when we get into those matches, the understanding is that we're going to win, and we hope that will continue as we get into playing some really quality opponents, some of the best in the country here in the next few weeks. But we talked at the very beginning of the season. I talk about it every year. The difference between success in this program is how many close sets are you going to be able to win, and Eva Hudson brings some of that tenacity. I think Hannah Clayton brings a personality on the floor that exudes others to play at a higher level, if that makes any sense to you. Skimmerhorn has that. And we just need more and more of that. That has to continue to grow, that competitiveness. And, I called it, talking to a reporter the other day, and I called it nastiness. All the things that Eva Hudson is bringing to our program, the ability to score points, ability to block, to pass, to defend, served really well against Ball State. Nothing is more important than the grit and the fight that she brings, and it's probably as high of a level in that area as anybody I've had, at least in a long time that I can remember, that just competes like there's no tomorrow, and that will spread throughout your team.
Eva Hudson still leading the way on the team and among the leaders at the conference and national level. 4.85 kills per set, 5.5 points per set. She's second on the team in aces. True freshman, just won her third Big Ten Freshman of the Week honor. 3 out of 4 that have been given. That's saying something in this league for sure. Just continues to.
That's the good news and the bad news.
Yeah.
Good news is she's off to a great start. She's doing very well. Bad news is that every team that we play from this point on is going to be watching tape, all night long, figuring out how they're going to defend a player of that ability. And that means 2 things. One, it means Eva is challenged, which is good for her because she loves the challenge, and she'll just continue to compete at the highest level. And she's hard to stop. It's not like you're going to take a line shot away from her and that's going to shut her down, or you're going to take the inside shot and that's going to shut her down. She just has a lot of really high level shots. The other thing is it opens the door for other people. If they're going to lean towards Hudson, then that's going to leave Matty Cook or Matty Chin on the right side open. It's going to allow our middles, who are not as good against Ball State for whatever reason, to have some better looks as well. So, teams will do what they will do, just like we do. We go out, we try to take certain things away from certain players and locate who their best people are and try to negate what they can do. But if other people step up, it's going to be a problem.
That's certainly, it's going to be interesting, like you say, to see now that there's really good film out there for Hudson. Of course, we expect she'll continue to grow and continue to evolve. Couple other players on the roster that are really sort of have caught your eye in recent weeks. I know you mentioned Lourdes Myers the other day at your press conference. Really like what she's doing for this club.
And that was Monday. And since then, she's had the 2 best practices of her career.
That's great.
Lourdes Myers is a 6'3" middle from Alliance, Ohio, over near Cleveland, that came in her first year and had a leg issue that had to have surgery. She then redshirted the following year. So she's had 2 redshirt years. She got COVID and then a medical redshirt year. And so she's virtually a freshman. And she has one of the best arms of any player we've coached. And now she's starting to put it all together. And she has been outstanding the last 2 practices and really for the last week. And it's just a look in her eye. A light bulb has gone on for her. And we knew it would be just a matter of time. Sometimes it's when you see the door open. Well, the door hasn't necessarily blown open for her because we have 2 really good middles in there.
Right. But
she is nipping at their heels as we speak. And to have another person that can come in there when we need, maybe one of them's not playing very well, like on whatever night it was, Saturday.
Yeah.
Now we won't hesitate to make that change. But I think with her ability level, with her length and her jumping ability, she's about a 10-6 jump toucher, which is 6 inches above the college basketball rim.
Yep.
She gives us a little more size presence at the net than what maybe the others, at least one of them, brings for us. So really, really bright star for us has been her in practice. And then I think we've talked about Rastovsky quite a bit. She's making progress, turning into a real player, just turning into somebody that we trust.
Really kind of thrown into the fire last week.
Yeah, she's had to go in some matches and start and play really well for us, and she has not let us down. I think I wanted to mention also Brielle Warren. Brielle, we're trying to simulate different teams in practice, and she's kind of on that practice side quite a bit. But she is, nobody takes practice more serious than she does. I mean, she is a great competitor. Talk about Eva being a great competitor. Well, Brielle is the same way. She just fights and fights and fights. She's just cut off a pretty good cloth. And so she's been outstanding for us. And then Lizzie Carr, who we believe is definitely going to probably redshirt this year, 6'6", plays every bit that tall.
Yeah.
And maybe our best blocker in the gym right now. And there's times we think, well, if she's our best blocker, why isn't she playing?
Right.
But we just know what she's going to be like for the 4 following years. You don't want to just throw somebody in there as a blocking specialist in a couple of matches when you could get a whole 5th year where she would be, I think, an All-America-like level player. So really happy with the progress of some of our younger players and what they're bringing to the gym.
It's important to see that growth, in practice for sure with the younger players, because they're not going to be able to get reps as much as you would like going forward in matches. So to be able to see that growth, be able to make those.
Yeah, and we really try to make our practices just like a high-level Big Ten match. The competition is there. The purpose of what they're trying to accomplish is there. We also have 2 or 3 practice guys in the gym every week, and when you're playing teams like Minnesota, and I know we're going to get there eventually, but Minnesota has elite athletes. They have a 6'7" middle. That's a freshman, Calvin Booth's daughter. Calvin played at Minnesota in hoops and was a good player, played in the NBA for a while. They've got a kid named Wooker, that is the #1 recruit in this previous high school senior class. They got another kid named Landfair, who was the #1 recruit 2 years ago. So they're going to bring the athleticism and the size and the jumping ability and hitting at a high angle that some of these guys that we have coming in. We got Kellen and Colin and the K-man, Kellen. Okay, Colin, Kellen, and Owen. And these guys could all be playing in the MIVA, the Midwest Volleyball Association at Ball State or Ohio State.
Yeah.
That's the level of athletes these guys are. So it's nice to have them in the gym, giving us that experience. So the competition we have, it's knockdown, drag out with those guys in there, and they're taking some big shots at the ball. And then you add Carr and Lourdes and Rostovsky and Brielle playing at that level. Then we've also got good setting going on. You got Balanceifer, and you've got Sidney Yim, and then you've also got our volunteer coach who was an All-American setter at Kansas that's in there setting. So we're putting good opponents on the floor. I feel good about that. The culture we've created is really, really good to develop our team, and I think that's one reason why year in and year out we're putting a pretty decent product on the floor.
Really getting that depth, developed so that there is no real fall off from year to year. The Dig City podcast is presented by Franciscan Health Sports Medicine, inspiring health. Franciscan is the official medical services provider of Purdue Athletics. Now back to the show. Let's go ahead and talk about the Gophers. They come in 5-3 on the year. They've been in the top 10 all season long. They're currently 8th. Their 3 losses are high-profile losses to Texas. They lost, to Stanford and then Pepperdine. All of those teams are in the top 20 as well, and they've got some great wins. Yeah. I know it's traditionally one of the best programs in the country. What in particular makes them really tough?
Well, the one thing that they do is they run, and always have, but I think they've actually sped their offense up a little bit this year. So it doesn't matter where they're setting the ball rarely gets above the antenna. I mean, they set a really quick ball to their pins, and then they've got these high-flying acts on the outside. Landfair's 6'4" and probably touches 10'9". Wuker has only played 2 matches. She was out with an ankle injury for most of the season, came in and played last weekend and had, I think, 28 kills in 2 sets, and she's also up around, I'm sure she's up around 10-6 with her jump. Wennis on the right side, a kid out of Texas, who I think is now a junior, was one of the top 10 returning players in the Big Ten, and they moved her from the left to the right. So now all three pin hitters are really dangerous. And I told you about Booth in one middle spot. They got Huseman, who started most of the season last year. It's in the other spot. They've also got 2 transfers. Michigan State's best middle, and then a really good freshman middle that transferred out of Ohio State, that are both there waiting in the wings for an opportunity to step in when something doesn't go well. And Hugh McCutcheon, gives them the nod to come into the game. And then their libero is a player that is highly respected. She's in her 5th year, and so CC McGraw is a really, really tough player. And so they have all that they need. Now, they are filling some voids. Obviously, Samady got 50% of their sets a year ago. So now other people are having to make that up, but they've got the personnel to do that. I think that if you would ask Hugh, he'd probably say their squad's still a little bit like ours. They're trying to figure some things out and get into system and where everybody understands where they're supposed to flow in every situation and where the ball should go and things like that. But offensively, they're a juggernaut.
They've also got a 6'3" setter who's
Melanie Schaffmaster from Newcastle, Indiana. That was actually, I think, committed when she was about 12 years old, if I remember the story right. And I think she was a little bit older than that, but not much.
Not much.
And she, opted to go to Minnesota and play for Hugh, which is not a bad decision by any stretch. So, but this is her. She's a junior now, and she delivers a really good ball. She's playing better now than she has in any other year. The knock on her in some years past was she didn't set the middle very well. Okay. Well, she's worked pretty hard on that because she's setting the middle at a pretty good level right now. And I think that offensively, she's the best offensive setter in our league. She will score points. She is going to be aggressive and score points. And again, like I said, she's 6'3" from the setting position, and no reason not to try to score points. It may be the easiest way to score in volleyball when you've got a setter that can do those things.
Yeah. That match, 7 o'clock Friday night. 7 o'clock Friday night?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock Friday night. Time change there for television. You guys will be live in the Big Ten Network for that Friday night match against the Gophers. I know it's been sold out for weeks, and you're expecting a fully lathered up crowd to maybe make a difference.
Well, we need that crowd. We need those folks on that wall, as we like to say, and this is one of those matches where it can make a difference. You know, our gym is not the most enjoyable place for opponents to come, and it has to stay that way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's tight. Our fans are as close to the floor as they can possibly be, and as long as they're loud and as long as they're coming with purpose and they realize that they can be a factor, then there's no rules. But let's just go.
You know, one really cool thing about volleyball being on television a lot now, being, virtually every match can be found somewhere. Somebody like me gets to see a lot of other venues that we wouldn't necessarily get to see. There's some great places out there, great gyms, new gyms, volleyball specific, built 5,000-6,000 seats that just don't look like great environments because it's kind of set back.
Well, they're all basketball venues.
Right.
A Holloway gym is designed for volleyball. It's a volleyball-only facility with the exception of about 4 wrestling meets that come in there during the year. Our wrestling team has their own, practice center, so they come in for their meets in our place. Otherwise, it's 24 hours a day, Purdue volleyball. But as a fan, you can go some places. You talk about all those matches on TV. Sometimes you might just want to stay home and watch it on TV. But when you're in Holloway, you're part of the action. There's some facilities, and I give Wisconsin a lot of credit for playing that match in Kohl Center, and it was an electric atmosphere. But you could be sitting up in the upper deck and not really feel like you're a big part of the deal.
You're watching it on a video board instead of...
You come into Holloway Gym, it holds 2,500 people. The highest you're going to be is 13 rows off the floor. So you're pretty much into the fray. And I think that's what people like. They will come into the gym, they're all coming in on floor level, and they're walking right by our players or the opposing team's players. They're thinking, holy cow, look at the size of that kid. They're watching them jump. They're hearing the sound of the ball, hand on the ball. So those are things that are pretty neat when you come to Holloway.
One quick note, if you are coming to Holloway, keep your head on a swivel because some of those balls might come into the crowd during warm-ups for sure. So
kind of like on the left field line at Wrigley.
Exactly. Yeah. You got to be aware. Turn around now. The Big Ten Conference did this quite a lot this year, where you're playing instead of the more traditional Friday-Saturday matches, it's going to be a Friday-Sunday split on your weekend.
Yeah, I'm not sure we even have one of those.
I don't think we do either.
They've done a really nice job of taking care of the athletes, not making them play, and the coaches, because it's really hard to play back-to-back. It stresses the heck out of you. But now almost every match we play is either going to be a Wednesday, Saturday, or a Friday, Sunday, some combination of that. So you've got a little bit more time to get your team ready, and they're not jumping 50 times, back-to-back nights or more than that for that matter. So, no, we have a day in between before we go to Iowa, and Jim Barnes is the new head coach there. He's a friend of mine. He did a great job at building Baylor's program. I talked about that at the press conference. I think he's the guy that brought in all those athletes that took Baylor to the Final Four. He actually was dismissed from the job just before that and landed at Tulane. Tulane won a conference championship, and then he got this job at Iowa. He really wanted it. I remember he called me. I was in Maryland taking a walk before our match with Maryland. He called me. He said, what do you think about this Iowa job? And I said, well, how many hours do you have in your day? And he decided he had enough hours in the day to come into Iowa and build that program. And he's a mover and a shaker, and he's doing a nice job. And he doesn't have the kind of players there yet that I'm sure he imagines he's going to have eventually, because a lot of players left Iowa when things were going a little south, but he brought some players with him to Tulane and got on the wire and got a few more players in there. They've been very, very competitive in non-conference. So we know going into Iowa, they play there at that hockey arena there off campus. And it's a nice place to play, and it's convenient for fans. So we're excited to go up there and meet Jim Barnes.
Hawkeyes come in 6-5 on the year. They've won their last 3 in a row. Another person I'm sure who's looking forward to that trip is Hannah Clayton. She's returning to play the team, the program that she helped carry for the last 4 years.
Well, she had a very good career there, and I think she is at the tip top of the blocking stats for Iowa, because she started, I think, every single match that she played there. And I know that they miss her, because I'm going to miss her when she leaves here, and she's only going to be here for one season. But she's been a wonderful addition to our team, and I know she's looking forward to playing, going back to Iowa. She loves her teammates. She just left because she felt like she spent 4 years there, and with the COVID year, it gives people an opportunity to go find a new experience and make something good of that, and she certainly is doing that here. Just really proud of her.
Of course, she's not the only one with local ties. Meg Renner gets to return and play close to home. She's, I believe, from Cedar Rapids area.
She's very close, probably about half hour away from Iowa City. And, for 3 years she's been watching us play Iowa and really hasn't been too involved, because Haley Bush has been running the show. Now, she'll have an opportunity to go out and really compete, and I'm sure she'll play really well against her folks from the home state.
Minnesota, 8 o'clock Friday night, and then a trip to Iowa. That Iowa match is also being televised.
It's a noon start.
It's a noon start on ESPN. ESPN2, I believe. So you can watch the Boilermakers twice this weekend. If you can't make it out, if you don't already have your tickets to Holloway, and if you are in the Coralville, Iowa City area.
Got to be some Boilermakers up there.
Got to be some Boilermakers up there, and I'm sure there's tickets available for that match.
Yeah.
So, Coach, we'll leave it there for this week. Good luck this weekend, and we'll catch you down the road.
Appreciate it. We'll see you on Friday night.
Boiler up.
Boiler up.